All right, welcome back to another episode of the Bold American Podcast presented by Barstool Sports. A lot going on, packed show. World War III might be on the horizon. We're recording this on Monday night. By the time you listen on Tuesday, who knows? It might have already popped off. We'll have to wait and see. The Army celebrated its 250th birthday over the weekend, and that caused a whole bunch of hullabaloo. Very sadly, there was a congressman from Minnesota and her husband and another lawmaker and spouse that were shot, and two were killed and the other are fatally wounded in a apparent politically motivated attack, which is obviously horrible. We'll talk on that. We have a very interesting interview with the creator of the Cots and Cots app. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, it is all the rage across the military right now for those living in the barracks and dining in the DFACs. And then finally, a new segment we have with the bold take of the week. Before we get to all of that, last 72, how was Father's Day? Rob.
It was great. It was relaxing, but it's too hot in Vegas to do anything. So we just stayed inside, watched Toy Story 1, 2, 3, and 4. Got some new AirPods. It's like my 10th pair of AirPods since 2017. So that's great.
Why?
I've misplaced, drunkenly lost AirPods over the years. Like, it's like my thing. So like every 9 months is like,
so that's why you stopped drinking. You got tired
exactly.
Of paying
yeah,
for
I got
AirPods.
tired of the AirPods. Yeah.
Smart.
No, but like real talk, I think I have an issue misplacing them. It's like I'll always lose one and then I'm down to one. And then it's just like an annoying thing, but I love AirPods. So no, it was super chill. I mean, what else did we do? Honestly, just hung out. I mean, shout out to us, right? We got the best tweet of the year so far for Bold American out over the weekend from the Army 250th. So super low key weekend. Yeah.
That's brutal to me that you can't even go outside because it's too hot. Like, why would you ever want to live there?
I'm wearing a long sleeve shirt right now because
you're inside in the air conditioning. I know,
but I have to go outside soon to do some shit. And it's nuts. Like it's great 9 to 10 months of the year living in Vegas. It's beautiful weather, but just if you have a family and kids, it's tough over the summer.
Yeah. I mean, it hasn't been great here. We haven't had like one solid weekend of good weather so far this summer. It's just been raining, but the summer's still young. But I can't imagine just being trapped in my house because it's too hot. So
it gets ridiculous because if you drive around town, like you can only do so much, right? Like if you have kids, years past, like last summer even or 2 summers ago, we would just hang out at the casino, go to the pool, whatever. But when you have kids, it's so different, right? Like your whole day-to-day shifts when they're young. But yeah, it's brutal.
So when they're like 5, 6, then you'll start going to the day parties.
Yeah, and then we'll go back to the day club, and my son will probably be DJing by then. So we'll be raking in some cash.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Ryan.
Well, happy Father's Day belated to both of you. Big Father's Day. You got 2 on the horizon, so that's kind of cool, right? Last Father's Day with only 1 child for both of you.
That's so true.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Next Father's Day, you'll have multiple children. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Connor could have 3 kids by then.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I'm already.
That would be quick. That would be pretty quick.
It's possible.
Well, it's definitely possible.
I guess. Is it?
Yeah.
I don't know. But Ryan, how was your weekend?
My weekend was good. I was back in Avalon, and again, there has not been one good weekend, but weather-wise. But got to play some golf with my dad and my son on Father's Day, so that was fun. We did a 9 and dine. I shot 49, which is very good for me. So we had a great day, great weekend.
Yeah, that's good because you only picked the game up like I don't know 2-3 years ago.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah,
it's good stuff.
So are you going to go to pickleball after golf? Or are you going to
I've
gravitate?
already started dabbling in the pickleball.
I saw that. And I was like, I will kick your ass in pickleball.
I think you actually texted me you'll kick my ass.
Yeah, I saw. I was like,
you
I
did.
Kick your ass. The thing about Vegas and this heat, though, is like Vegas is such a huge retirement city, too. So there's pickleball courts everywhere. So I've been playing for a little bit. But it would be legit if us three somehow could get like involved with pickleball for something. It's super easy to pick up, Connor. Like you're athletic. You'd crush it.
No, I've played it before, and I've played it enough to know it's a stupid game that I don't
Yeah.
like.
It gets
I don't really
intense
wanna
though.
play.
It gets intense. The court gets intense.
I get it. I don't know. I just don't really have a desire to play. I mean, because my free time is limited at this point.
Right.
I don't want to use it on a sport that I don't enjoy.
I feel you. I feel you.
Yeah.
But yeah, one day I'll beat Ryan on the pickleball court.
Okay. All right. I had a
Man,
little bit of
agree.
a Father's Day, like full weekend, just the way it
Yeah.
worked out. I played golf, played around of golf.
Okay.
On Saturday, my wife, who is 30 weeks pregnant, spent, I'll say conservatively, 3 hours in the kitchen cooking a meal for me and my two buddies that she didn't eat any of and wasn't planning on eating any of it. She just really likes to cook.
Wow, that's
But
awesome.
yeah, she is a special person when it comes to the kitchen. So I was very lucky. So had an unbelievable meal. And then Sunday, all I wanted to do was go to mass and go to the diner. I'm very simple in that regard. And it was raining again. So I'm in the afternoon. We just
some of that.
Yeah, we went to the mall and walked around. That's become a new favorite of ours. Is walking around the mall for no reason, just to walk around.
How's the state of the mall by you? Is it like enjoyable, or do you do it just to do it, or is it like
What mall do you go to?
Short Hills.
Short Hills. Okay.
Yeah,
Short Hills is a good mall.
Okay.
It's a good
It's
mall.
a very good mall. It's a very good mall. I would argue it's. I mean, I've been to a lot of the malls in New Jersey, and it's definitely probably the nicest. And now they have an Eataly in there as well.
Ooh.
And I miss the mall culture.
Yeah.
Right? Like from growing up, when you get dropped off at the mall, maybe in high school, and there was a movie theater. Short Hills doesn't have a movie theater, but that's probably on purpose to keep a certain demographic of kids away. But the idea you would go and you meet your friends, go to a movie, go to the food court, hang out, and that's just non-existent now. I feel like no matter where you are in the country, and mall culture is dying. And actually, let me ask you guys really quickly, and then we can jump into these topics. Do you prefer shopping for anything in general? Like if you had to pick one, do you prefer shopping online or in person?
In person.
I prefer in person. My family in Germany had leather goods stores, so like I'm a huge like window shop guy. Even like I love that. It depends. Like I just ordered a bottle of SPF on fucking Amazon, so that's great, right? But like if it's a big purchase, I have to go in store and I have to use a certain card, or like I have to like be diligent about it. Like Walmart or whatever big purchases, I have to do in person. I really go about it in a certain way. It's weird.
I think that the worst thing we ever did was make it normalize shopping for furniture online. Like
Yeah,
the furniture stores, all you can find now are like the Raymore and Flanagan. Like you can't walk into a store. I'm not going to go on Pottery Barn and pay $10,000 for a couch that I can't sit on. I think it's crazy. So I have the hardest time with furniture when I can't.
What about IKEA? Are you an IKEA girl? Have you done that?
Ryan is gonna be polite, but I'll be not polite for her. Ryan is graduated from IKEA. If you're using IKEA and you're over the age of 24, what are you even doing with your life?
Well, I say that because IKEA, if you use it as a shoppable experience, like
it's great.
There's some dope shit. Like for internal decoration reasons, like it gives you like some creative ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're going to IKEA every week, that's interesting. But
no, if I could walk into like a Ballard and it's set up like IKEA, but like I want to order like outdoor furniture and it's like thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not ordering it out of a catalog or off a website. I'm having a lot of trouble. So
no, I'm with you guys. I prefer things in person, and also the dopamine rush of buying something and physically having it in your hand right away, as opposed to waiting however many days for it to come in the mail. I get you there. And then,
so what about Connor? Hot Topic. When you went to the to the mall, did you go to Hot Topic, Spencer's at all? Do you still poke in some of those?
So Short Hills doesn't have any of those stores again because it doesn't want to encourage
Yeah.
teenagers to hang out there. I'm talking, if you go look, Sans, if you can really quickly look up like store listing, the mall at Short Hills, I'm talking like super duper high end
Yeah, it's like Louis
stores.
Vuitton, Chanel. That
Yeah, Hermes, Rolex, like
Short Hills is like Pennsylvania's King of Prussia Mall.
gotcha.
They're very, very, if you've heard of King of Prussia Mall.
Yeah, I almost feel like King of Prussia has some of those other like more mainstream stores though.
They
It's
do,
bigger.
but it's much bigger. But yeah.
But yeah, no, the mall at Short Hills is a very, very nice establishment. But anyway, okay, everyone had a nice weekend. That's great. Now,
but the world's
what's
on
not
fire.
so great is the world is on fire yet again, and it appears we might be on the brink of war. There was a lot of movement today, Monday, with the Air Force shipping a bunch of planes and refueling, and it just looked like there was a lot of movement to the Middle East. But Rob, do you want to go into a little bit more detail about what the heck is going on in the Middle East?
Yeah, I'll do the honors here. So, as everyone's probably heard, Israel preemptively attacked Iran last Thursday with around 200 fighters from their Air Force fighter jets and drones. And so, why did they do that? Well, the IAEA announced, and Israeli intelligence found that the Iranian nuclear program was a lot closer to being complete and in having enriched uranium, where there was a strong likelihood that Iran could have had a nuclear bomb within months. So Israel preemptively, and I think correctly, took out maybe 6 to 8 key Iranian leaders in charge of their military, in charge of their special forces, the Revolutionary Guard Corps, which is kind of like, their specialized troops. Took out a lot of stakeholders at the top. Took out all the nuclear sites to this point now. The Israelis were super calculating, actually threw off the Iranians because there was supposed to be a negotiation happen this week or next week. And the Iranians and the Trump administration, the Israelis and the Trump administration put up a front to kind of deflect from the attack incoming by basically saying, and the Trump administration put out a statement that they were, encouraging Israel not to attack, kind of like playing into the Iranian hands a little bit. So it threw off the Iranian air defense forces completely. So Israel preemptively attacked Iran late last week. Because of that, Iran has started ballistic missile barrages into Tel Aviv and civilian sites across Israel. Israel's the size of New Jersey, right? So it's very, very small compared to Iran. Iran, I think, is almost 2 Texas state size in terms of geography. So kind of a crazy landmass, but they're both exchanging missiles right now. And at this point, Trump.
And by the way, really quickly, the fact that we have people just very willingly taking cell phone videos of these missile attacks as
pretty
if
nuts,
they're
right?
A fireworks display on the 4th of July is absolutely bananas. Your country's under attack, and your first thing is like, well, hold on, let me get this for the gram. That's ridiculous.
Pretty wild. It's almost like if Ryan were to, like, you guys are kind of close proximity, right?
Relatively,
it's as if, like, Ryan could see missiles going towards you, Connor, and she's standing out on her porch with her father, like, holy shit, look at those lights. Those are headed towards Connor. That's kind of the same like geography you're talking about when you talk Israel, Lebanon, and Jordan. And really, Iran is launching all these missiles over the country of Iraq, and they're just kind of flowing towards Israel. Now, Israel, for everyone's awareness too, has a really fucking shit hot air defense program called the Iron Dome. It's able to take out like 90% of missiles. The other 10% are sadly being picked up by drones, or they're being missed, and so they're hitting civilian sites. So really, though, the Iron Dome has probably saved maybe close to 500,000 lives in Israel, which is fucking awesome. Now what you have, though, is Trump just left the G7 early, and he even put out a statement on Truth Social and Twitter about an hour ago on Monday night at 5 p.m. Pacific, basically telling people in Tehran, the capital of Iran, to evacuate.
And they are. I just saw there's like a mass exodus happening in Tehran right now.
And then one final point here, guys. The U.S. Air Force just activated maybe 400 more planes that are en route to the Middle East from Ramstein, from the U.S. So there's a huge convergence right now of Air Force troops and Air Force fixed wing elements on the way to the Middle East. So let's see what happens by the time this episode comes out tomorrow morning.
That's just so scary. I mean, I pray that the idea that we would ever be attacked on our own soil here never comes to fruition in America, but I cannot imagine. I mean, take justification, who's right and who's wrong. Take that out of the equation. I'm just talking about if you live in one of these countries, the idea that you could go to sleep tonight and wake up to missiles being hurled at your country is just unfathomable for us here in the United States. And that's the reality that they're dealing with. And that's incredibly scary.
People in Israel are used to it. Like the bomb shelter rotations in Tel Aviv, for example, the bomb shelters, like Ryan, Connor, myself, our families, like we would rotate down to these shelters under our apartment complexes or a shopping mall or a soccer field. And we would sit there for 20 minutes. Then we'd go back out, go on with our lives. And they have these shelters strategically placed all across the city and country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I
It's
feel
crazy. And it's normal.
Yeah, well, right, exactly. And that's the unfortunate part, that they're used
Right.
to it. I mean, I feel like the closest we've come to that in this country would, be the start of the Cold War, maybe, things that went on in Cuba in the 60s with President JFK. But since then, there's never really been a threat outside of, movies. There's no real threat that we would be attacked on our own soil. And obviously, we're not going to dive into how complicated things are in that region, because I think there are experts who are not even aware of everything that's going on, people who talk about this stuff for a living. But it's scary to think from our perspective that we might now get involved and really have our hand forced to get involved in yet another conflict in the Middle East. And I think that's what worries me.
I think one more note on this too. The Iranian regime and their military leadership is pretty much decimated. Like no one is really stepping up to the plate. There's reports that the next in line, they're all kind of like hesitant to get up there. Obviously, they're going to get taken out by the Israelis or some sort of, asset team. But the Israeli Air Force did such a good job of taking out the Iranian Air Force too, where they're down to only like 40 or 50 active fighters. The Israeli Air Force has like 600 fighters. The U.S. Air Force has like 5,000 active fighters potential, capacity. So the Iranian Air Force is depleted. Their whole government is almost in shambles, and you have a really big population that hates their government. So it's going to be a really interesting week or two ahead.
That's an interesting thing, because there's obviously a very big faction in Iran that hates the West, hates the United States. Okay, got it. But then there's this part of the Iranian population who hates their government and is essentially cheering for this to happen because they want to see that regime get toppled so they can go back to a different way of life. So it's just super complicated, and we can move on from here, because again, I think by the time this episode airs in the morning, things could be very different, and it'll just be something that we have to keep a very close eye on as tensions rise there. But very, very scary situation.
Yeah.
Not so scary though was this past weekend when the Army celebrated its 250th birthday with a massive parade there in Washington, D.C. A lot of opinions flying around. People liked it. People hated it. What were your guys' overall thoughts about the Army's 250th birthday celebration?
I mean, I thought it was great. I think people hated it because they thought it was like Trump propaganda.
No kings, no kings.
Yeah, I don't think that people, I don't think people hated the Army's 250th celebration, but I think they, they tied it up with a bunch of other things. And, but I thought it was cool. I actually knew some people that marched in that parade that are in the Army, might be cadets at West Point.
Cool. I didn't know that.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's very cool.
The cadets look good too, Ryan. Tell your friends over there they did a good job.
They did do a good job. Yeah. So I mean, I hope they go even bigger for the Marine Corps' 250th. That's all.
Okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Well, that's a good point though. Like everybody who's in their fields and getting all upset about the Army having this big celebration for their 250th birthday.
Yeah.
You think when November rolls around in the Navy and the
Marines,
it's
going Richter scale.
have a 250th. They're not going to do something of equal
Yeah.
scale and probably more debauchery, if we're being very frank.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
lived in the city of Philadelphia, where
Yeah.
the Marine Corps was born.
That's
Like,
right.
I already know of very big things that are planned in this city for the Marine Corps
That's awesome.
250th.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be a great thing. And I think
Yeah.
that's something that should be celebrated. You know, people forget, like, this country's only that old, right? So
Yeah.
the fact that we've had something, an institution like the Army, endure for the entire history of our nation
Yeah.
is immensely impressive. And it'll be just as impressive when the Navy and the Marine Corps celebrate their birthdays as well. And I think you're right, Ryan. I think it's like people conflate their feelings on the political spectrum versus the Army celebrating its 250th birthday, because on its face, I don't think anyone cares that the Army would have a celebration. But
Well, it was also, not to cut you off, but it was also Trump's birthday.
yeah, that
So
just
people,
Flag
I
Day.
know, but people
And
started to
Flag Day.
say like Trump's having a parade for himself.
Mhm.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, no, it's the Army's 250th birthday. But they were like, oh, he's having a parade for his birthday. I'm like, not really, but
yeah.
so you know,
I think it's cool from the perspective of everybody that was involved in it, that they'll be able to look back and tell their
Yeah.
kids, like, I was a part of that parade, that massive celebration, because it really was a cool thing. And, you know, two things that stood out to me, people were like, oh, what did it cost? You know, I'm not
Good
going to
thought.
excuse the Department of Defense budget, but you know, there are a few line items. You want to look at the F-35 program and what that's cost us over the years, and I haven't seen anybody up in arms about that.
I have a
There's a
counter
lot
to
of
the cost
superfluous
thing.
spending. What were you going
I
to say?
have a counter to the cost thing. Did you guys see the amount of ads and marketing that took place throughout the parade that was not geared towards the US Army itself? I'm talking Amazon. I'm talking First Form, the fucking energy drink. The whole parade itself, sure, there was a public fund donation for that from the DoD. The majority of the funding for this parade was supported by Amazon, Palantir, defense tech companies, and some other brands. Like, that's how it was funded. It wasn't
Yeah.
funded by Pete Hegseth's, like, accounting team. They raised money and capital for this parade. And so throughout those 3-4 hours of the actual parade, that's why you saw those interchanging ads. As an advertiser, I picked up on it and I was like, oh, they actually did a good job. Like, they had legit sponsors, like an Army Navy game.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of Army Navy, like the people who are like, oh, are we now a third world communist country parading around in the streets?
Oh,
We
bro.
do so many things that are patriotic and meant to demonstrate our pride in our country. The national anthem before every sporting event. We've had ticker tape parades at the end of wars. I mean, you mentioned Army Navy, the Army, the cadets and midshipmen marching onto the field. Are all these things flyovers at the Super Bowl and other major sporting events? Are all these things of communist nation? No, it's just I think people use it as yet another point to either back the current administration or go after the current administration, and that to me is just exhausting. It's like, why can't you just be proud of our country and proud of the U.S. Army? And I was certainly proud, and I made it known that I was proud to see this, and I thought it was cool, all the different uniforms and all the different vehicles and everything. And I had people coming at me like, oh, are you proud of that this is what your dictator, this is what you voted for? I'm like, that's not what I'm talking about. Like, stop making one thing about another. And it's everything now. It's never can just be
right
on its face what it is.
Just enjoy it.
Yeah.
But you can't. To your point, everything has to be some sort of slant. There has to be a take on everything. Like, if Biden or if Kamala, let's just say Kamala won the presidential election, there would have been a very similar parade, I think. I really think there would.
I do too. And guess what? Again, I can't wait to see what happens to the city of Philadelphia. I hope it's still standing, come the fall.
It's a month before Army Navy, right? The Marine and Navy birthday. It's like Veterans Day weekend or something.
Yeah, no, it's Veterans Day, right?
November 10th is the
November 10th. It's the day before Veterans Day. Right.
Gotcha.
And it's like, It's like the line from A Few Good Men. It's like, be careful. The Marines are fanatical about what? About being Marines. You're going to see that come to life come November. I'm excited about that because, one thing you cannot say negatively about the Marines is they take a lot of pride in who they are in their uniform. So I could very much see like Marines past and present from all over the country descending on Philadelphia for whatever they have planned. So,
I
keep
wonder
an eye
how
out for
this
that.
fuels the Army Navy game jerseys. Like, how does Navy? And that's a whole nother podcast episode in itself. But like, I wonder if this like creatively spurs into anything for like the Navy uniforms for this year's Army Navy game.
Oh, for both of them for like a 250 type thing, like maybe
Yeah,
like
I
a
wonder if they do
Revolutionary War type.
Yeah. Oh.
Maybe. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. 2 more points about the parade that stuck out. Jesus. Does Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth not have
Your boy.
someone? If I tried to walk out of the house wearing a camo tie, my wife would grab me and say, "No, you're not wearing that. I don't care that it's the Army's birthday. You're not wearing that tie. It looks horrible." And it looks horrible. I'm sorry. I appreciate his patriotism, but it's just too much with the American flag,
the
pocket
camo.
square, the camo tie. It was just, it's too much, man. And then also, I think a few different accounts tweeted out. It's wild to me. I turn on the TV and we're one of my teammates from Army football, who is now one of the people who carries around the nuclear football for the president. And it's just wild that that's where I'm at in my life, that I have people old enough to be of that rank, of that level of responsibility, and that close to the president and the nuclear football. Is just crazy to me.
Do you think we can get him on as a guest?
You know what? He might not be allowed.
Yeah,
I could ask him, but he's
Or
probably not
after.
allowed.
Or after,
maybe.
if there's like a afterwards,
After
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
that could be a fun episode. Charlie's a good dude.
Yes. I don't even know if we're supposed to say his name, but anyway,
I didn't say his last
shout
name.
to him. No, true. And then also over the weekend, very, very sad that there were lawmakers from Minnesota. I said Minnesota at the start, I think. Hopefully I didn't say, I said Minnesota. Okay, sorry. A gentleman by the name of Vance Bolter was arrested and charged. He posed as a police officer, fatally shooting former Democratic House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark in their home early Saturday in northern Minneapolis. And then he also shot Senator John Hoffman and his wife, Yvette, and they were injured at the residence about 9 miles away. Not much to say here other than, if there's one thing that I hope we can all come together on as a country and not make it like, who was he targeting? Was he a MAGA person? Was he not a MAGA? It's like killing people for political reasons should never be okay. Killing people, period, obviously. I'm going to go on a limb and say Bold American is not a favor of killing people, innocent people. So just curious if you all had any thoughts on that unfortunate event.
I was tracking it a little bit. I saw it was the largest manhunt in Minnesota's history.
Credit to them for rolling out that level of resources to go find this horrible guy.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing else to say. It's disgusting. I did see it denounced, rightfully so, by people on both sides, and I mean, I think it just unfortunately speaks to the level of like where we are as a society, and that's the sad thing. Yeah.
Ryan said it. Yeah.
You could be so charged up by people that you take it to that level. And on a much smaller scale, like I'm sure we all know people in our own lives, the people who like every day post about the president in favor of or against, either way, because I know people on both sides who are people.
Is that your tweet today? How people are exhausting? Was that what that was about?
Yes, people are just exhausting. It's like,
dude, it's so bad.
Doesn't that bum you out? Like every day you feel the need to say something?
And you guys know, like, we have friends on both sides.
like we all have friends, classmates, former coworkers that just are on both sides of the aisle and they just don't shut the fuck up. It's like every day. My DMs, like some of my group chats, like people are on both sides of the aisle and they just get into it, man. Like we're talking like close friends of mine and they just 18 hours a day, they just fucking get after it in the comments or DMs or texts. And I'm just like, what the fuck? Like put that energy into something else.
I
Right.
had 2 friends from high school that were going to be down were supposed to be down in Avalon this weekend. One of them, I hadn't seen him in like 10 years. I was super excited. My other friend calls. He's like, I'm not going to say his name. He's not coming. I'm like, why not? He's like, we got in a fight over politics. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me?
That's so
Like,
stupid.
what? And he was like, yeah. He's like, oh, we just don't see eye to eye. I'm like, then don't talk about it. Like,
Yeah.
Simple,
I just wanted
simple
to
solution.
drink some beers and have fun and catch up and tell funny stories from high school. And now
Yeah.
he's not coming because you guys got in a fight about politics. Like,
Which is so pathetic because even the
So
congressmen
pathetic.
on the opposite sides of the aisle, they go drink afterwards. You know what I mean? Like,
That's such a good point, and that is what people don't understand.
right.
I have spent time with many congressmen and women down in DC, and there are real, true, authentic friendships with people on both sides of the aisle. But I think what you get are these like quick quips, and you see them battling it out on the House floor. What you don't realize is they're all going to the same bar afterwards and they're drinking, and so we don't see that side of things. So then you get these people like this guy from Minnesota that's crazy, and it's like it's people don't understand, like, you have to be able to meet in the middle somewhere. Like, you have to be able to find that common ground. And at the end of the day, I truly believe that you can find some sort of common ground with every single person you meet.
100%.
You may
said that well.
not. Yeah, it just is what it is. Like, you have to look for that thing that that you can come together on, and let that be the thing.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I don't know what will turn the temperature down in this country. Because it's been hot for years now, and you could point to a lot of different reasons for why that is. I don't think it's important at this point to point out those reasons. I think it's more important to figure out a solution to move forward as opposed to looking backward, because we can't keep this up. We can't keep this up for years to come. Something has to change because people are being killed for their political beliefs. Shore weekends are being ruined.
I mean, yeah, that's a big deal. But you say that, and I hear people a lot of times like, it's never been worse. We're at a tipping point in where we are in our nation's history. But like, if you revisit history and you look back, this has always kind of been how it is. Like, look back.
Social media amplifies it too.
Yeah, social media does play a significant role, but I don't know. I don't know if it's I think this is just kind of the way society works. And
I think it's just going to continue on too, sadly. A quick thing on the Minnesota event. That politician, the lady, when she voted against the healthcare for illegal immigrants, you could see how troubled she was, but she clearly really thought that she went with the right decision, but she was troubled and she was a little nervous almost in voicing her take as to why she went that route to vote like with the Republicans. And that's scary, right? It's like Democrats or Republicans, anyone shouldn't live in fear for voting or speaking about a certain political matter, right? Like that's not what we're about. And so,
I mean, I'll tell you, I served as a township supervisor for 12 years, and there were some votes where I went against what, we were a board of 5. So I sometimes went against my party affiliation and voted the other way. We had panic buttons. Like, I sat at a dais with a panic button because and I had a button. And I also had, the sheriff of the police department sat at the dais with us, but like we sat in front of people. Like, so we would face the crowd And if there was a big issue, that room was filled with hundreds of chairs and people screaming at you. And but there was one time where a guy started walking up and he was getting he just started kind of charging. And, and I had like the button and he got stopped by the police. But those are the things that people have to deal with. And it's a lot.
Yeah.
So I give credit to people again that step into the arena and you have to make hard decisions. And, that's not everybody's willing to do that. So.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, it ended the way that it did, and you hope it never comes to that. So I don't know. Hopefully, we can figure out a way to make change and be better for the future. And another person who's trying to make some change is our guy Rob, who we interviewed, who created the app Cots and Cots that reviews DFACs, dining facilities, and barracks across the military. And very cool that he's doing this, and very cool to see some of the traction that he's getting right now. So let's throw it to our conversation we had with Rob. Joining us now on the Bold American podcast is a very interesting guest. Very, very interesting guest. We have never, to my knowledge, interviewed in my time doing a podcast, someone who created an app. And this app has been gaining steam the last few years, and I've started to take notice. Little app called Cots and Cots. And if you're in the military, you know all about this app. And if you haven't been around the military in the last few years, listen up because it's very cool. And right now we have the creator, curator, proprietor of the Cots and Cots app, Rob. How you doing, Rob?
Good, Connor. Thanks for that great intro, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Rob, really quickly, you did serve in the military. That's correct, right?
Yes.
And as you scratch your shoulder and pull up your forearms, I see all those horrible enlisted tattoos.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Enlisted.
So what's your military background?
So I enlisted in 2000. I was a junior in high school, Army Reserve guy. I was like, hey, you want to do some drill stuff on the weekends, 2 times a week or one time. It's like 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year, cool. Let's do it. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't have a great living situation in growing up. So it's like, maybe it'll give me better grounding, better footing. Finished up basic and then AIT. I finished AIT 2 days before 9/11. Actually, I was finishing my last PT test as like everything was going down. Like I walked into the day room.
Moly.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. Like our group class photo was 2 days. Took my last PT test. I come to the day room. Everyone's like gathering around the TV. I'm like, what's going on? They're like, a small plane just hit the World Trade Towers. And then it was like, this isn't a small plane. And then kind of things just like escalated from there. Got back to my reserve unit and they said, hey, welcome. You're going to deploy to Fort Stewart. You're going to help mobilize 3rd ID. I was a garrison support unit. So we basically then held down the garrison while 3rd ID went forward. And then I was working in G2, working in the skiff for a while. And that's where I got my first exposure to computers and setting up networks, working on Nipper and Sipper. It was actually a great learning experience, fresh out of high school. Did 6 years in the reserves, did a couple deployments, and then I went into the National Guard thinking I wanted to support my local community. I think I saw like a commercial for National Guards, like you can support your community for like natural disasters. And it was like right in the middle of the surge. And then the recruiter's like, hey, you're going to a new unit. They're actually transferring to like this new sustainment model, sustainment brigade. You're good. And then like a month in, the big Army was like, hey, we're going to reclass you and transfer you to another unit. And you're going to go over to Iraq. Welcome to North Carolina National Guard. The funny thing is I ran into my recruiter in Kuwait in another tent, which was pretty comical. As we like locked eyes, he was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
But I did that and then I came back, did 12 years. I got out as a fueler when I went over there. That's what I was, a 42 Alpha in the reserves. And then
what's a 42 Alpha for those who are not familiar with MLS?
Yeah, 42 Alpha is personnel admin. So anything administration wise that sit in the office, S1 shop maybe. and then they reclassed me to a 92 Fox, and then I was moving fuel between the smaller FOBs at Bob Falcon, went to the smaller Cobbs, did bulk fuel transportation, and got out in 14 and got out as an E5, and that's been my life. That was kind of it. Been in tech for a while. I couldn't do Signal. Everyone was like, they knew my proficiency in computers. Like, why don't you go Signal? I was like, well, I'm colorblind, so I really can't. Yeah.
Okay. Dude, that's a wild journey. I mean, first with the timing on
Yeah.
9/11, what's going through your mind as, what were you, 17, 18? Oh no, you had to have been at least 18, right?
I think I was 18. Yeah, I was 18.
What's going through your head while you're watching this? Because I don't think anybody, when they were watching it, even after the second plane hit, I'm sure some people's minds went like, all right, we're going to go attack somebody, but we didn't know exactly what was going on. But a lot of people weren't actually in the military, because 9/11 was like a catalyst for people to get into the military.
Yeah.
So what's going on in your head in that day room, if you can recall?
Yeah. I think it was kind of shock. I think everyone was really shocked by that. Like, what is happening? The drill sergeants were actually in the room too. It's kind of a moment of like, everyone in the room was pretty much graduating. We were now like soldiers at that point, and we're kind of, in a sense, in an equal playing field now. Like, no one knows what's about to happen. Like, I'm sure the drill sergeants were like, what's going to happen? Is my time in his drill going to be up? Am I going to be deployed? Like, who knows? So, I mean, shock. I didn't know it was going to happen. I remember the drill sergeants pulled us all outside and was like, hey, base is going to lockdown. If you have family or anyone coming in for the graduation, they may not be able to get in for a couple hours. It's going to be a long wait to get into the base. And then it was just kind of like organized chaos, I guess, maybe, in a sense. Like, I remember the drill sergeant saying, like, one of the things, your life is going to change. Like, when you get back to your units or wherever you're going, things are going to change now because of what's happening. And it did. I remember getting home and I wasn't home long, and remember packing up all my stuff and getting ready to go up to deploy for my first time. My first time really kind of away from home outside of basic training and AIT.
That's crazy. I mean, and that's quite a journey too, like between reserves, guard. What did you notice as the difference between like moving between the reserves and guard and deploying later on down the road there with the guard?
It was very different. It was just very different all around. In the reserves, you're federal, you have more access to resources. I felt like TA-50, I didn't have to deal with any of that when I was in the reserves and the type of unit I was in. So when I got to the guard and they're issuing you all this stuff like right out the gate, I was like, oh, okay. I mean, it makes sense. But then also you hear about budget constraints and like, oh, we think we're going to be able to get you uniforms next month, but here's this random set of piece stuff where you kind of put together. But also like 2009, like that time frame, like budgeting was kind of crazy because everything we were trying to do was forward overseas, like nothing really for statewide type stuff. So, and also I think the people were also different. I don't know how to really describe it. I remember.
No, I get it, because I've interacted with all
different
compos, and they're all just very different in how they view the world, how they view their service, how they're viewed by other people, rightly or wrongly. I get it.
It was, and I don't, and I'm not knocking the National Guard. Like, they did a lot for me, but it felt more professional on the reserve side at times, and at times in the Guard, it was very just like good old boy, country boy type stuff. And I don't know if that was maybe because of the location, the Guard unit I was in. I don't know. It's just that was kind of the vibe I picked up going from the reserves to the Guard.
Okay. The reason I asked what the differences were, because I think you kind of like saw the spectrum in terms of how you're treated, all the way from other active duty units and how they view you, to your living quarters, your food, and things of that nature, which we're going to get into with how you created this app.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you had a little bit of time doing some G2, some Intel. You learned a little bit about tech. What does that even mean when you say like you learned tech? Like, you learned to code, you learned how to like plug computers in? Like, honestly, I have no idea what that would entail.
Yeah. So first thing that the guy I worked with in the G2, he worked as a consultant for IT. So he got me set up on setting up how to set up email accounts, how to add computers to a domain, basic computer administration, turning stuff on, how to plug stuff in, like basically computers 101. And then as I got back, I kind of just dove headfirst in all sorts of computer stuff. I didn't get really into programming until the last probably 4 or 5 years.
Mhm.
But most of my understanding was trying to figure out how software works, which
Mhm.
is kind of important when you're programming. It's like wondering and trying to figure out how things interact with the other operating system. This is totally nerd stuff. I get it. Uh, but it's just, I guess, mainly just starting with the basics. And I just kind of kept building off that stuff into more in depth type of work wise. And career wise, I was able to stay in IT, troubleshooting computers, how computers operate, how software applications work, how the browser works, things of that nature.
Yeah, and I feel like with software and IT in that world, if your brain has an aptitude for it, you can kind of do a lot of learning on your own, especially now with how much is out there. So if you
Yeah.
have that aptitude and that thirst for knowledge, you can just continue to teach yourself a whole bunch of things.
Yeah, and that's how like you hit it right there. Like software development, I had some basic understanding of like if this happens, then this, like basic coding, but from my because I got a bachelor's in information technology. But then I wanted to get deeper and I picked up software development on my own, just self-taught. Like I didn't have to go to school for it. And it actually has helped me in my professional career and obviously with Hots and Cots, I was able to take this and kind of do something with this.
Okay, so all right, then let's just jump right into it then. Hots and Cots
Yeah.
is an app, big picture, where people, and by people I mean service members, are able
Hmm.
to, give a review just like you would give a Google review on dining facilities, DFACs,
Hmm.
hot meals, and cots, barracks, where they're staying, whether it be a temporary assignment, TDY, or the barracks on a given installation. Is that the gist of the app?
Yeah, that is it. It is
Okay, and
pretty much Yelp for
well,
barracks.
Yelp for barracks. There you go. Perfect. So, what was the genesis for this app? You were
Yeah.
just itching to build an app, or you saw a need, or how did this all come about?
I saw a need. I've kind of so prior. After getting out in 14, I kind of stayed in the military community through social media aspects, mainly primarily Reddit and engaging in that platform. And then so I kind of knew, and being in the service, I knew the situation with the dining facility and the barracks. And everyone, if you've served, the barracks aren't always the best. Dining facility is not the best. Depending where you're at, your mileage is going to vary. Um, and then a friend of mine was like, "Hey, you should do something." And I kind of waffled on it quite a bit. And I was like, I don't know if I really want to, if I want to really get into this. And then the government accountability report came out in 2023, which talked about the conditions of the barracks. And then simultaneously, a good friend of mine that no experience in the military, other than he knows I was in, asked if I would be okay with my kids being in the military because they're young, but they know I was in the army. They know my dad's in the Navy, so they have an interest. And I was like, well, I'm going to support them whatever they want to do, but I'm going to explain the situation, what it's like. Like it's not all what you see in the commercials, jumping out of airplanes and helicopters and faster up and down. I'll be honest. So, and then I told him about the government accountability report and the situation with the barracks and things that were coming out. And he was like completely lost. Like he had no idea what it's talking. He's like, what are you talking about? Like you guys are in the military. You have your living conditions all taken, your accommodations are taken care of. Your food's great. Like that's what I thought. I was like, no, that is not the case. I mean, not all the
Right.
time. I mean, sometimes you may get lucky and get a great barracks, or you'll get into a place where there's a good dining facility, but that's not always the case. So it was after those two kind of things, I was like, all right, what can I do? And we kind of came up with a platform to fill this gap for those in the barracks to rate their dining facilities and their barracks. Because there's nothing like that right now. If you're a family, if you're a company, you're going in the military with a husband or wife and kids, you can go and figure out what house you're going to get there. You can see a layout, you can see their work order history. You have more access to information to make an informed decision. If
Mhm.
you're going into the barracks, you don't have other than what someone told you online or maybe what you found from somebody on the internet of what those barracks and dining facilities were like. So that's where I got. So we started kind of brainstorming this Yelp for barracks. We didn't. The thing I wanted to avoid, and we talked about, is not have it as a complaint system. It's not a complaint platform. It's meant to show
Okay.
what's great, the 5 stars, because there are some great installations with some good barracks, and then there's also the other side of things where we have the really crappy stuff. And I feel like that stuff needs to be shown, like just as much as the bad stuff, the good stuff can be shown. Now, but the negative stuff is kind of what always takes off. That's what gains the traction.
Yeah.
And I mean, people like it, and in a weird way. And I think there needs to be some sort of accountability, and that's why it's public. Like, we as taxpayers, we people supporting the military should know how our service members are living and eating, for both bad and good. So that's also why it's public, because there's nothing public out there for the community to see.
And it's so true. I would argue 98% of the American public has no idea and makes the same assumption, like, oh, people in the military, they got a great, every 3 square meals a day, they got a roof over their head, it's all taken care of. And anybody who's served obviously knows the truth, that the 1% of us that have served know, like, oh, no, it's not always roses and sunshine. But if not intended to be a complaint system and intended to be more of a Yelp, what was the intention behind the app? Was it like, hey, I just want to build this app so people have a forum to go? Or was it ultimately intended so that leadership, be it in the military or at the government level, the federal government level, would see this and react to it? What was your thought process behind creating it?
So it's a great question. And the Government Accountability Report, when they came out, it had 30 some action items in it, and they've only resolved 11. But one of those pieces they called out is that the Department of Defense does not have a mechanism to track the conditions of barracks.
Okay.
So there's no platform. There's ICE and there's ARMA. Those are the two main ones, and there may be others that I'm not aware of, but ICE is the main one, and ARMA is the other one. ARMA is what you're going to use to submit your work orders that service members use, but that's installation wide. That's not just barracks. It's anything. A sign is down, you go to ARMA and submit a work order. ICE, you can't submit photos. There's no app. If ICE hasn't been touched in many years. I think when I looked at, the last update was 2003, I think, is the last update I saw it got. But it's not, that was the last public one. So there's no media. And it's very, if you just Google in military ICE and go to the website, you'll kind of get a feel for the site and how it's not been updated and shown any care in a while. So that was kind of the thing. It's like, okay, I can provide something that's modern, that has an app to leave a review within 15 seconds of a service member. I mean, it's a very small window. You have the attention of folks, and that's not just, and that's any app. Everyone's, I mean, when you're looking at Instagram, you're scrolling, you spend if you spend like 20 seconds on a video, you're moving on to the next one. So that was kind of like my idea, is like, one, now I have a tool that DoD can utilize, compare their installations across branches to see the conditions of the barracks and make informed decisions. Because the other part of the Government Accountability Report is that installation commanders, it's on them to make a decision on how the barracks conditions are.
Right.
It's not up to the service members living in them.
Well, so that's what I was going to say. It's like, this is really intended, I think, ultimately more to get the attention of people in leadership and decision-making, because if I get orders to go to Fort Bragg, it's not like I can go on the Hots and Cots app and say, "Ooh, that barracks has a good review. Let me see it." I just get assigned to a barracks, and then I go to the nearest DFAC. So these service members are at the mercy of wherever they're stationed. So is it then ultimately your goal to get this enough traction that maybe this gets adopted by DoD, and then we can be a little bit more effective with how we improve living situations and eating situations?
Yeah, it is. And when I started it, so I've released a lot of solo apps just thinking they would take off, and they never really have. They've just fun. And I kind of, I'll be honest, when I released Hots and Cots, I didn't foresee it taking off the way it had. I felt like it would probably get some traction, and then probably after 6 to 8 months, I would probably get a letter from the DoD to say shut it down or something. Like, it wouldn't be going on like almost 2 years now. So as it progressed and I've gotten more traction, and I've had kind of these back channel conversations with leaders at all sorts of levels. I mean, all the way up to the Department of Defense to installations. I'm like, this could be a real tool, game changer for those leaders to make these decisions, to see, okay, Private Snuffy here needs to walk 2 miles to his dining facility because that's the closest one. Well, maybe we can move some barracks around, or maybe we need to plan a dining facility closer to these barracks, or maybe we need to look at better transportation on our installation. I can't make. I can provide all this data, but I think it's on leaders to make those informed decisions, and hoping they're making the right ones for those living in the barracks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, I think there are so many leaders out there who have the best intentions to take care of their formation to the best of their ability, but without information, they
Mhm.
can't affect that change. You can't just willy-nilly go, ask for an adjustment to your budget because you have a barracks that's falling apart or a DFAC that runs out of food in the Wednesday of every week. So they need this information. And I hope you don't mind me saying, I did see you put out today that you have put in official requests with DOD, and
Mhm.
the federal contracting process is a challenging one.
Yeah.
So, but I do appreciate that you're going through those channels to try to put this tool in the hands of people that can make changes with it.
Yeah, I'm really trying. And this is no disrespect to IMCOM, and IMCOM has said, they haven't said this to me. I've heard this through various channels that they're not going to work with me because I'm not like an official capacity. Like, I'm not officially working with the Army, and I'm trying. Like, I want to work with IMCOM. I want to work. I've talked to installation commanders and leaders like, hey, we love what you're doing, but we really kind of can't really officially endorse you because you're not official capacity with IMCOM. And so that's, like you said, I've submitted an unsolicited proposal to do the FAR. I've tried to work with Redstone. I'm trying different avenues, and I got some other things I'm trying. So FAR did deny my unsolicited proposal, saying it wasn't original and that it wasn't. Basically, I think the way I interpreted it was like, I can pursue this through a normal vehicle contract, which I don't know what that is. I'm hoping they can tell me what that contract vehicle is so I can actually go and try to bid and compete. We'll see what they
Yeah.
say. But I'm trying. I want to be able to put this tool in the hands of leaders because, you can't do photos. But the other mechanism for collecting feedback is these yearly or bi-yearly surveys. And that's not really public, and that's not always consistent.
And it's not real time either.
Yes. Nope. This is real time. You can't.
That's great. I got a report in front of me that's telling me something that's been a problem for 6 to 24 months. I mean, I don't think that's the most effective way, especially in 2025 with all the technology that we have. There's got to be a better way. And it seems like Hots and Cots is doing that. And it's also not surprising to me that this app has taken off, because one thing I think across the board, regardless of branch, whether active duty or veterans, it's a tight knit community in that we stick together in our problems, and seeing other service members in a bad situation, you kind of want to help them out and pick them up. So I feel like this app is allowing people to do that, and allowing people to say like, hey, I just PCS from Fort Cavazos and this DFAC was all jacked up and they never had milk on Tuesdays, or whatever the case may be, whatever the rating was. And you hope that, okay, if I leave this review, maybe they'll get that fixed. Because I think from what I've followed and seen, you've done a lot of great work where leaders have been alerted to issues, whether it's with air conditioning, food availability, and made changes, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. The food one makes me think of Fort Carson. They went to a kiosk model for the weekends. They still have kiosks, but they went to a situation for a while. They're now serving hot chow on weekends, but it was just kiosks on weekends. And one of the complaints was, why can't I get milk and a yogurt? Like, why can't I get both? Like, milk for my drink, it counts as 2 dairies, and I'm not allowed to do that. So they left a review, and I went to my contact over there and was like, hey, this came in. Is there anything you can do? And sure enough, he was able to make that change so they can get a milk for a drink, and then also a yogurt, two dairy products. Like, so that's one scenario. I mean, JBLM, a soldier came back from Iraq. His first room back had mold and bugs, and within 24 hours, I had the soldiers in a new room because of my working relationship with JBLM. So I've made all these connections at installations to be able to cut through the red tape, because they're apathetic to submitting work orders because they're not going to get looked at or taken seriously, or they have to wait 3 weeks for it, or tickets get closed. Like there's all these barriers, and like soldiers just like, I'm not even going to submit a work order because I'm tired of the process.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so if anyone in the military is watching this and listening, like I advocate to follow the process. Like I am not trying to circumvent the tools in place. Like I want them to submit a work order, file ICE, but leave reviews, because there's also those watching that can make a difference.
Yes. And, I think it's really important to point out. I'm going to make an assumption here, and you tell me if I'm correct. This app is not meant to put the military, put the military on blast. This app is meant to be a resource so that issues can be highlighted and fixed in a more efficient manner, not meant to tear anyone down.
Yeah, I don't want to tear anyone down. I've the Army's did a lot for my life. As I mentioned earlier, like I joined when I was 17 because I didn't know what I was going to do. Growing up, I lived with my dad. We moved every couple years. I think at one point in my life, I lived like on the same block in 3 different houses, and like didn't have running water at times, mold, like food insecurity, like all those things. And joining the Army made a difference for my life. It allowed me to go to college and not be in tremendous debt. Like it did a lot for me. So I know what the Army is capable of. So I wanted to work. I want to work with the Army. I want to work with the Department of Defense. Like I want to make these things better for those in the military, because I know what it can do for people.
Okay. And I want that for you too, because ultimately this is going to help everybody. It's going to help leaders make informed decisions. It's going to help quality of life issues for service members across the board. And ultimately, it's going to make our military that much better, because we won't have to worry about barracks problems and DFAC problems, because they'll already be proactively taken care of to the best of their ability. This is not something where we can snap our fingers and every barracks ever is fixed and made incredibly modern, and every DFAC is now a Michelin starred restaurant. Although I'm curious, and we can wrap up here. And Sans, I want you to chime in with your experiences here. I want to hear everybody's best and worst HOTS and COTS. So I want to hear about your best. What was your best DFAC, your worst DFAC, your best barracks, your worst barracks? Okay. So Rob, let's start with you, because I don't want to put Sans on too much of hot seat there. But if you could just off the top of your head, what are some of the best and worst experiences that you can remember from your time?
Any breakfast. Breakfast was always on point. Like I never had a problem with like a bad breakfast. The only time it was a bad breakfast was like when you had to wake up and you had to like eat an MRE or something something like that. But from the dining facility, like DFAC breakfast, hands down.
But which DFAC specifically do you remember?
Oh, I don't remember a specific DFAC, but I would probably say it was probably Fort Stewart, because that was the first time getting exposed to a dining facility outside of like basic and AIT. And it was like, it just was like, this is what I can eat every day. Oh, you know what? Actually, I take that back. I'll probably get slack on this, but it was probably the Air Force DFAC at the Baghdad airport.
That's
now
not
that I think about it.
That's not surprising.
I mean, I know it's forward, and when you're forward, you have and when you're in theater, the meals are different, but it was definitely different eating at their.
I mean, if we can count forward, like Jesus, I was at Balad. The DFACs in Balad were unbelievable. Some of the best food I had. Kuwait, midnight chow at Kuwait stands out for me. Yeah. But we won't count those.
Yeah, we won't count forward. So I'll say Fort Stewart. That was like my first time at a dining facility. And I saw like this was like the food was like how like the portions, this like everything was just that's what stands out for me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's mine.
Okay. Sans, best and worst. What do you got?
Well,
I'm sorry, Rob, really quickly. What was your best and worst barracks that you stayed?
Camp Shelby. Does that count?
Okay. Yeah, sure.
I'll say Camp Shelby is probably that was like the worst barracks and the worst chow.
All right.
Yeah. So for me, I mean, it's both. So I was fortunate enough to stay on 32nd Street, and their barracks there is solid. Naval Base 32nd Street, and especially once you make E4, you get to apply for the Beacon, and those are like higher upgraded apartments. Then with balconies overlooking like the entire base and stuff. So it's like very nice, and they did really good like with their work orders too. They were like on time and pretty prompt about it. And the chow hall, as long as you were early, the that was the thing. You had to, like, if lunch started at 11, you were there at 10:45 waiting in line to get the good, fresh, hot stuff, because the good stuff would run out pretty quickly. As far as worse, though, it's when I was PCSing out of the military and I went to Djibouti, Africa, and I stayed in Connex boxes with, there were air conditioned Connex boxes that they were type of stuff you would see like when in an underway replenishment. And then the chow there wasn't amazing either. And so I was there also in the middle of July, the 4th of July in 2019. So it's like 110 degrees and you're walking around in your camos. It was tough.
All right, that's brutal. I'll give you that. I'll just go from active duty, because West Point, I mean, we were living in buildings and barracks that were, like 100+ years old, and they've actually done a great job in recent years renovating like all of them. Because when I was there, and then now I'm dating myself, we didn't have central air. So when I was there, especially like during summer school, you're talking about a 100-year-old building with no air conditioning, and you're trying to make do with like a tiny fan. That was brutal. But the mess hall at West Point is something special. But again, let me talk about active duty. And really my best was probably Fort Sill when I was there for BOLIC. The barracks there, it was as good as a barracks that I had ever seen. I thought that was a good situation, as was the DFAC. And then just everything down at Fort Polk, which actually I think maybe called something different now. But when I was there for JRTC, that was just not great, especially when you're, in the field, like doing your, exercises. The dining facility situation was just not good. So
I think it's back to Fort Polk, by the way.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it's tough to keep up these days.
Tough to keep up.
So
it keeps changing.
Yeah, best was Fort Sill, and worst was Fort Polk, and I feel like a lot of folks might agree with that one. But Rob, seriously, dude, I think this is awesome. I think what you're doing, the intentions are pure. You're looking out for your fellow service member, and you're affecting change. And I'm happy that you created this app, and I'm happy when I see people talking about it and when I see the success stories, because ultimately that's what you're going for here. So where can people find you on social media if they want to download or follow along on your journey?
Yeah, so if you want to follow me on X or Twitter, it's Hots HOTS Cots COTS_app, or you can go to hotscots.app and you can find my website there and how to get the app on iOS and Android for free.
All right, Rob from Hots and Cots, thank you very much, and I wish you the best success in the future as you continue to battle the federal contracting system and allow your app to be officially used by the Department of Defense. I think it's going to happen for you. It's just a matter of time. So I wish you all the best, and thanks for joining.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
All right, very cool. Very young as it relates to the age of the app, and I think what we're seeing right now across the different branches is you're starting to see some leadership that is willing to do things differently, willing to make changes if it will improve the quality of life, and not just lip service like maybe we've heard from some previous leaders. So I hope that the app continues to gain steam. I hope that he continues to gain traction among leaders across the military, and we can improve the basic needs of our service members, be it dining facilities and barracks, because they deserve to live well and eat well while they serve this country. And with that, we are going to introduce a new topic, a new segment called the Bold Take of the Week. And the only guidance I gave to Ryan and to Rob was it could be anything. There was no instructions beyond that. So I'm very curious to hear what everybody's bold take of the week is. Would either of you like to start with your bold take? And you only give one. We'll start with just one, because I feel like this might go off the rails.
I have one.
Go.
As the social media marketer and the brand strategist out of the three of us, and as someone who spends fucking crazy amounts of time on social media, it's part of my job, I have a really hot take. If your significant other tags you in a fucking Instagram story, and there's more than two, you don't need to reshare every one of those fucking Instagram stories to your own Instagram. 90% of the people that follow you or follow your significant other probably follow you. So you're giving your friends and family the two same fucking stories. And it's annoying. Not everyone needs to see those stories. So that's my take.
So pick
You know what
Okay.
I'm saying, right?
So you
No,
just-
I do know what you're saying.
I agree with that. So you take one.
Yeah. So let's say, your wife tags you or you guys go out to an event, dinner, whatever. You don't need to restory those 9 stories from your wife, from your girlfriend, from your friend. You don't need to restory all that shit. No one really cares.
Was this prompted by everybody's Father's Day posts?
It's been prompted by a lot of shit.
Okay.
A lot of prompting.
A lot of prompting. No, and it's a hot take, but I think it's valid, and it's I'll stand by it.
Okay.
All right. I'm okay with that. Ryan?
Connor, you hadn't gotten on yet. I spent. I actually have 2, but I'm only going to share one because
Okay.
we've got weeks of this. But I spent a lot of time on this after you sent the text. I wrote something
Ooh.
out. It's something that I argue with people about a lot. And that is mayonnaise is the superior condiment. So
That's not that bold.
It's
No.
not very polarizing.
No, that's not that bold.
you
That's
guys like
saying you're-
mayonnaise? I
it's
get
like,
fight with
love
people all the
it.
time. Okay, then I'm gonna
get better friends.
fuck. I fight with people all the time about mayonnaise. Like I
Who-
dip my fries in it. Shit,
Oh no,
I
that's
thought it was gonna be
kind
like
of
a hot take.
culture. I like it. I like it.
No.
Okay, then fuck it. I'm not going with that one. Then I'm gonna go
really
with my
quickly.
other.
Your predecessor of the same name, Kate Mannion, her favorite sandwich on the
Mhm.
beach when she's down the shore. I think it's like it's probably bologna. It's like bologna and mayonnaise. I don't know, some trash
Yeah,
sandwich.
that's
But what
a-
she likes to do is put it in tinfoil and then let it sit in the sun for a little bit, and it kind of like warms the mayonnaise up.
Yeah.
And that's how she enjoys her mayonnaise. So I don't know, maybe it's a Philly thing that you all like that mayonnaise. But go
bologna
ahead.
and mayonnaise on white bread wrapped in foil, sitting out there on the beach. I'm down. Okay.
Yeah.
So this one, okay. I literally have my note. This is my note section, okay? Because
I
I
love it.
wrote these out. Philly has the best sports culture in America, hands down, period. And I could go
Again,
on.
that's not that bold.
I feel like
Really?
you also said that
What?
on another
I don't know
episode.
that you are understanding
No,
what we're
but
looking for with bold here.
Well, I don't think his was that bold. Don't share stories. Like, no,
No,
like,
because
don't share
no,
multiple
that's
stories.
that's a little more bold just because
Yeah.
people get really possessive and territorial about social media and they might take offense
I
to that.
thought
I don't
these
think
were
you're
like
offending
such-
people.
You don't think I'm offending people by saying that Philly has the best sports culture in America? I think I mean,
No.
I fight with people all the time about this.
You guys have championships. You guys have championships across all the major sports.
Like
You've
baseball.
won a lot. You've won recently. The whole Sands. You can chime in here, but he's talking about how you guys boo Santa. That's like your biggest knock. But I don't think you could argue that Philadelphia is a diehard sports town. You can make the argument that Philly rides harder than New York or Boston and have a genuine argument. You might have people that disagree with you, but that's like saying like Albuquerque, New Mexico is the most diehard sports town in the country. That would be a bold take. Saying one of the biggest markets in the country with major teams in every major sport is a great sport. Sounds like, yeah, I would agree with that, even though I'm not a Philly fan.
That's really easy to say after a Super Bowl win too. It's like, oh, we have
Right.
such good
No,
culture
and
in the
that's
city,
why
and the Phillies have 41 wins. We look so good right now. Our sports culture,
Time
the
out.
bank, the
Time
blink.
out.
I love everything about Philly. Yeah.
And you know what else? I'll give you credit. You know what Philly has done so well? You got all your stadiums right there. It's super convenient. The Xfinity Center with all the different bars, getting in and out of there is like easy peasy relative to some other towns.
Okay,
You guys
well
have
then I
done a
thought
great
they were
job as
bold
a sports
takes.
town.
Thank you. All right, I have one more bold take.
All right,
man-
let's
I mean,
times a
because
charm.
shit, like, yeah, all right. My third bold take is that a man could never do what Taylor Swift has done. Is that a bold take?
Oh my god! But men have. There's
No!
men that have.
No.
All right.
No.
Well, all right. Let's clarify. What has Taylor Swift done that you're referring to?
Got the rights to her music? Is that? I'm
I mean,
confused.
there's just so many things. Like, I think, like, if a man did creatively what Taylor Swift had done, like we'd be like talking about him as like revolutionary, like a
Have you
master
heard?
of invention.
Have you heard the name Bruce Springsteen? Look at the man's catalog, and he's been around since
Trump's boy.
the 70s.
Oh, apparently I found a bold take, huh?
Wait, are you
Well,
referring
no,
to like going from country to pop?
It's everything. It's literally.
I guess this is a little more bold because it's so ridiculously wrong.
Oh, okay. Bold take
I mean,
found.
you could argue that Bob Dylan did what Taylor Swift did in terms of his songwriting, his longevity, his catalog. Elvis, to a lesser extent, obviously he didn't have the longevity, but certainly Elvis, in terms of the popularity all over the country, captivated a country the way that Taylor Swift has. But I don't think it's that bold because I think men have done it. And this is not like a man versus woman thing. I just think there are musicians that have come before her who have done this. You stink at this game.
That's subjective, Ryan. Don't let him troll you. Come on.
Oh, man. I think Ryan's frozen now. She's so upset.
Tell me.
I love Taylor Swift. I own multiple albums of hers. I think in terms of generational, you have like Bob Dylan, then you have Bruce Springsteen. Like my generation, our generation, she's the best songwriter of our generation. I think you can make that argument. I think what she's accomplished in terms of how popular she is and the depth of her catalog is so impressive. She's undoubtedly, whether you like her music or not, you can't argue.
But people do. That's my point.
People
That's
are
my
idiots.
Okay.
Right.
Well,
okay. I think you have so many Swifties on your side, though. It's not that bold to stand behind the army of Swifties and say, like, Taylor Swift's the best.
Well, to my argument, a man could never. Like,
but a man has, unfortunately.
No, but a man hasn't. No, a man hasn't, because you're talking about Taylor Swift's army of Swifties. So tell me about Bob Dylan's army of, people that are going to back him up, or Bruce.
Oh, I don't know that
it doesn't exist.
You're not going to get the same level of diehard fans. I think there's a ton of fans of Bob Dylan over the years. I think you can get the same level.
Point,
no, you can get the same level. You could get the same level of Springsteen fans to go up against the Swifties. You absolutely could. So I don't know. Maybe this is a bold take.
That's a bold take. You think that you could get Springsteen fans to go up against Swifties?
Yes, because he has. I mean, he's been relevant since 1973 when his first album came out.
He's been relevant. It doesn't.
Well, I think in the music industry, longevity does lend itself to credence when you're talking about.
Sure, and look what she's done in half the time.
Okay, so let's see if she's still around in 60 years.
60 years. I don't know about 60.
Well, what's the math on 19? We'll just go by his first album, 1973. How long is that? It's what, 50 something?
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like Bruce, you could very easily make the argument Bruce Springsteen already did what Taylor Swift is in the process of doing.
No.
Just so it is impressive. Taylor Swift has more streams than anyone else on Spotify or any other platform. 72,502,219,000. Drake is second, and he's the most streamed male artist with 72,496,000.
What about Springsteen?
So it's
what
close,
about Springsteen?
But to say that no man could do what he did, I mean, Drake is only what? Drake is 6 million off of her. I mean,
I don't think that's a good indicator because there's a vast majority of Bruce Springsteen's fan base that doesn't listen to Spotify or stream music. They just listen to his music on vinyl or cassette or CD or whatever they have because of the age demographics. So I don't think that's the kill shot you think it is.
It's a fair point.
Okay. Well, I guess I get a win because I got a bold take. So bold take.
It's a bold take. It's a bold take.
She had a few good takes. I think
Yeah.
If your bold takes were in the MLB, Ryan, you'd be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, there we go. All right, Sands, what do you got? What's your bold take?
Shoot. I mean, I don't know how to follow that up. I don't know if it's that bold either. City. No, I mean, I was gonna tell you that the Steelers were gonna win the AFC North, but I'm not talking to Raji yet. I think Caitlin Clark would beat 99% of the NBA players in a 3-point contest.
99%?
Yeah, I think it's like her and a select few. Like I think,
think it'd be
you got to go.
more
You got to
like
go to the
maybe
best shooters in the league, like Steph, Dame, like spot up guys who can hit from outside consistently. I think Caitlin Clark, other than that, takes down everybody. Like she's hitting 30-footers, she's hitting between the legs, step back over the.
I don't think
the
that's a
team's
bold
best
take.
player.
I don't think that's
I don't
a
think
bold
that's
take.
that bold of a take. You're saying the best
Yeah.
player in the WNBA could
Yeah.
In her
stand there
second
and
year?
shoot.
Yeah.
her
But
second
Sands,
year?
you're talking about a 3-point contest. That's not like in the midst of a game. It'd be a bold take if you said like she could go play in an NBA game and do that. That would be a bold take. But for
I
her to
actually like
be in a
that take.
3-point contest, like
I think
that's
she
just
probably like average like
that's
9
shooting.
and corner
What I
three.
didn't realize about this segment is that how much criticism we were going to get from Connor on our bold takes.
Yeah,
That,
that's true.
I
I
mean,
didn't know what we were
that's,
walking
that's
into.
a bold take. That's a bold take. Jeez.
listen.
Can't
you-
wait to
you're
hear your
talking-
bold take.
All right, ready? Here's my bold take.
Yeah.
And I'm taking this. I tweeted this. Maybe it was last week, 2 weeks ago. I don't know. Flasks, like for like alcohol,
Mhm.
are the biggest. Like looks cool in movies on TV and is largely useless. And here's why:
Not a bold take.
because you and people came at me hard for this. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you don't need it on the golf course. It's like, well, no, I'm not trying to get obliterated on a golf course. Like, I drink on a golf course. I'm no pilgrim. Here, or not a pilgrim. What's the other purist? Yeah. No, what? Not purist, pilgrim, Puritan. I'm not a Puritan. I enjoy alcohol, but I'm never in a place where like if alcohol is socially acceptable to be drinking, golf course, concert, tailgate, it's all readily available. I'm never in a situation where I need alcohol so bad that either A, I can't pay for it or it's not available. And people are like, well, the one area I did agree with a chairlift when you're skiing or snowboarding, that is probably the only place I would agree. Like, flask is good there because you're
There's
not
a
like
good edginess to a flask, right? It's
Yes.
like it's kind of like a shady thing, but it's like also kind of it's kind of like
I don't know. If you line up 10 people, how many people in their life do you think? Like, I'm sorry, if you line up 10 random people, how many of those people do you think have ever owned a flask? 0.
I don't know.
Maybe.
Like 0, 1. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a
Might be a
stupid thing.
dated. Might be a dated item.
I
Well, maybe
literally
that's
have my
it too.
brother's flask is behind those knives from Iraq in the
See, that
background. But
Embrace the day. I love this. Let's all hate each other by the end of bold take. That's my favorite.
I mean, I don't really.
is this every episode we're doing this?
I hope so.
I don't know. We'll see if we can keep the segment every episode, but we might need to save it so we don't burn out of our bold
Yeah.
takes. I don't know.
Once a month,
I
maybe.
think it's largely stupid. People are like, oh, you need to sneak one into a college football game. It's like, well, and this
Yeah.
is where I didn't say this out loud, but it's like I've been afforded now the opportunity where more often than not, I'm like, in a section where getting alcohol is not difficult and I'm not standing in long lines, but also I'm not so jonesing for a drink that I need to like take a pull of whiskey from my flask.
It'll
So I
help.
think-
It's helpful. A flask is helpful for very, very cold, frigid environments where where liquor is not readily available. I say that as an alcoholic. Like a flask would come in handy if Army Navy ever dipped down to like 15 degrees Fahrenheit.
Sure.
They're not selling unless you're in a box like we're doing.
Sorry,
or
I
something.
sit in the
Like,
box with
most
Ryan
people-
every year.
But you know what I'm saying? Or
I'm
a
either on the
Meltzer
field or
game.
in a box. What do you want from me?
But see,
lying.
there you go. You
Yeah.
want a little Jaeger, you want a little whiskey, warm up a little bit. You know what I mean?
I would agree with that. That scenario.
But
So,
that's like one night, maybe out of every 2-3 years, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like you don't really need a flask. Flasks are stupid.
Yeah.
They look cool as hell in the movies when someone pulls it out and they take a pull. But
Or you
And
get a
I want
decorated one
flasks.
from Spencer's like in
Yeah.
2008, right? Like get
Yeah.
your buddy a flask with a funny
right, it was a
dip
cool
on it or
thing to
something.
be given as your like groomsman's gift for like the dude who got married at 23, and then you grow up and you realize like, this is useless. I'm never going to carry a flask with me anywhere I go. So that's my bold take.
That's good.
We'll
bold.
work on the segment. Just getting started, but now we understand like what needs to be the parameters. But I guess each one of those garnered some discussion. So I guess by definition, it's pretty bold if it's getting some controversy. But anyway, all right. Any caveats? Anything we missed? Anything you guys want to share before we wrap this thing up?
Nope.
No, I just want to give a shout out to all the folks who follow us on social media, and then just remind everybody who is listening to give us a follow on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Bold American Pod. You'll find us on all those platforms. Be super helpful.
Fans,
No, like and subscribe. I agree. Good caveat.
Yep, like
Rob.
and subscribe. Yeah.
yeah, we need it. We need it. All right. Thank you, everybody. Very busy. Things are going to get more busy this week, I suspect. And an interesting conversation coming up next
Love it.
week. But in the meantime, take care. Make it a great week.